the safe job was not safe.
AI is
You're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to someone that uses AI. The key for
Have you noticed how many videos like this are appearing lately? Every time I open YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, someone is confidently explaining how AI is about to replace entire professions, like programmers, designers, writers, teachers. Apparently, all of us are in danger now. And honestly, as an English teacher myself, after watching a few of these videos, I started asking myself a serious question, like, am I about to lose my job? My name is Moldir Assanova. I grew up and went to school in a small village here in Kazakhstan. I studied English, fell in love with language, and eventually got a master's degree in Applied Linguistics for English language teaching at Queen Mary, University of London. I've been teaching English for over 10 years now, in language schools, at university, and right now in a state school in Taldykorgan, which is a small city in Kazakhstan. So I'm not a tech blogger, I'm not an AI researcher, I'm just a language teacher who uses AI in real classrooms with real students every week. And today I want to give you the most honest answer I can to this question. Can AI really replace English teachers? The answer is more complicated and more interesting than most people think. Why do even people think that AI will replace teachers? Let's be honest, AI is extremely powerful, and I say this as someone who actually uses it. Today, AI can already explain grammar rules, translate texts instantly, generate vocabulary lists, generate endless ideas for different activities, correct writings, simulate conversations, create lesson plans, worksheets, exercises, and so on, instantly. And it does this remarkably well. I'll give you a real example. The other day, I needed to create speaking cards on conditional sentences for my students. Normally, 20-30 minutes of work. With AI, 30 seconds. Another example, when my students write essays, AI can instantly highlight grammar mistakes and suggest improvements. That used to mean waiting a week for my feedback. Now they can get a first response immediately. So when people see this, they ask a completely logical question. If AI can explain grammar, correct mistakes, why do we even need teachers? But here is a key problem with that question. Learning a language is not just about receiving information. And this is something I understood at a much deeper level when I was studying at Queen Mary. Applied linguistics is not just grammar theory, it is the study of how people actually acquire and use language in real life. And what that research tells us is very clear. Language learning is a deeply human process, and you cannot fully automate a human process. Let me give you a real example from my teaching here in Taldykorgan. Over the years, I've met so many students who knew grammar extremely well on paper. They could write out every rule. They could explain the present perfect perfectly. But one of my university students once told me something that has stayed with me. I understand almost all the grammar rules, but when I try to speak, my mind goes blank. During speaking activities, I have noticed that this student would freeze, not because of ignorance, but because of the gap between knowing and doing. I see this pattern constantly. Students who know all the grammar rules, but the moment they start speaking, they make mistakes. Why? Because language is a skill, it's not just knowledge. It's exactly like learning how to drive. You can read the entire driving manual cover to cover, study every diagram, pass the theory test, but until you sit behind the wheel, in traffic, like with real pressure, you don't really know how to drive. And this is where teachers become essential. Because teachers don't just deliver information, they create situations where students are forced to actually use the language, under real pressure, in real time, with real people. And no chatbot replicates that. And here is why specifically. What AI cannot replace. So first, motivation. Most students start learning English with real enthusiasm. And then that motivation quietly disappears. I remember one of my IELTS students here who almost quit entirely. She came to me and said, like, I think I'm just bad at English. Some people can learn English, like languages, and some people can't. And I am one of the ones who can't. But that wasn't true. What she needed wasn't more grammar explanations. She needed someone to look at her and understand where she was stuck and believe that she could get through it. We worked step by step on her speaking, her writing, and her confidence. A few months later, she passed the IELTS with the score she needed. AI can deliver information. It can be endlessly patient, but it cannot genuinely believe in a student the way a human teacher can. And that belief that someone who knows what they are talking about thinks that you can do this, I think changes everything. Second reason is emotional safety. Learning a language as an adult is genuinely difficult. It makes people feel vulnerable. Every time you open your mouth, you risk sounding foolish. I had a student in a language school, an adult professional, who almost never spoke in class. Not because he didn't know English. He actually had a strong foundation, but he was afraid of making mistakes in front of other people. We started small, short answers, pair work, there were activities where there was no wrong answer. Very gradually, something shifted. By the end of the course, he was one of the most active students in the group. That transformation happened because of a human relationship, because he felt safe, because real person, not an algorithm, was paying attention to him specifically. AI cannot create psychological safety. It can simulate patience, but it cannot see a student's hesitation and deliberately choose to create the conditions for them to take a risk. Third reason is understanding your specific students. One thing I've noticed after years of teaching in Kazakhstan is that my students here make predictable mistakes. Mistakes that come directly from how Kazakh and Russian influence their English. When I hear these patterns, I don't just correct the surface error. I understand what is causing it. I know exactly what to explain and how. AI gives generic corrections. An experienced teacher working with Kazakh learners specifically understands the interference patterns, the cultural context, the specific journey those students are on. And that kind of localized contextual expertise cannot be replaced by a general purpose language model. Fourth reason is real spontaneous communication. Language ultimately exists for one purpose: communication between people. And real communication is messy. Students interrupt each other, they react emotionally, they misunderstand and repair, they laugh, they argue. I remember a class discussion with my high school students about social media. The conversation started as a structured exercise, and then something happened and students started genuinely disagreeing with each other in English. They forgot about grammar, they forgot about vocabulary. They were simply trying to make themselves understood. That moment, that urgency, that genuine need to communicate is so difficult to reproduce with a machine. And it is in exactly those moments that real language acquisition happens. Now, here is something important, and I want to be direct about it. AI probably will not replace teachers, but it will replace bad teaching. Teachers who spend their lessons just reading from textbooks, translating text word by word, explaining grammar rules all 45 minutes, they are already competing with AI. I think they will lose because AI can do those things faster, more patiently, and it is available at any hour. I say this not to be harsh. I say it because I've had to ask myself the same question. When I was studying at Queen Mary, one of the questions we kept returning to was this: what is a teacher actually for? And the answer is not to deliver information. Information is now everywhere. The answer is to create conditions for learning, to build confidence, to ask questions that matter, to respond to what's happening in front of you in real time. In my classes now, I try to spend less time explaining and more time on discussions, speaking tasks, and real communication activities. Not because I'm lazy and I don't want to explain things, but because that's where the real learning happens. The role of a teacher is shifting from information provider to a learning coach. And a learning coach is something AI simply cannot be. Instead of fearing AI, I've chosen to use it. And I want to show you how. When I prepare lessons now, AI helps me generate discussion questions in seconds, create vocabulary exercises tailored to a specific topic, design worksheets that would previously take me hours, find authentic reading texts at the right level, and even create audios and videos. This saves an enormous amount of time, and that time gets redirected to what actually matters: talking to students, understanding their difficulties, encouraging them when they want to give up. The question is not, will AI take my job? The question is, am I the kind of teacher who can use AI to become better? So, can AI replace English teachers? My honest answer is no, but it will absolutely transform what good teaching looks like. I grew up in Kazakhstan. I studied in London. I've taught in classrooms across different institutions. And the one thing that has never changed across all of those contexts is this: students don't just need correct information. They need a person who sees them, believes in them, and creates the conditions for them to grow. No algorithm does that. Language learning is not just about grammar or vocabulary. It's about confidence, communication, and human connection. And now I want to hear from you. Do you think AI will replace language teachers, or do you think human teachers will always be necessary? Leave your comments below, and if you are a language teacher watching this, are you already using AI in your lessons? What has your experience been? I'd really love to know. If you found this useful, subscribe, because I make videos exactly like this one: practical, honest, and based on real classroom experience in Kazakhstan. Thank you for watching.